Hi, I'm Anna Eastalis, and welcome to this 3D construct emotional template session. This is number 6, and today we're going to be working with the emotional template dynamics of attention, connection, and disappointment. So, this is my premise that we are living in a ceaseless state of separation. It is everywhere. It is the actual world reality environment that we live in all the time. And this includes we can be in separation when we're sleeping, which is a really difficult thing to kind of grasp, but we can be in a state of separation when we're sleeping. Because of the nature of time and history and things that we're just beginning to find out about, and we're in a frequency age, but we're also in the age of genetics, and we are aware now that we have evolved to the point where we can tinker, I'll use that word, manipulate, tinker with genetics. And so it's not that far of a stretch for us to imagine that as we're doing it, it might have also been done to us over the course of our human evolution. Now, the tinkering that has happened to us, and I hope as we're moving forward and we're evolving, that we're going to find ways to remove the damage to our DNA. It's going to happen organically. The Earth is working on that right now as things are being cleared out, because the Earth is not choosing to remain in this state of separation. That's not her state of evolution. She's going in another direction. But the easiest way to keep people in separation from ourselves, from each other, from an internal sense of peace and harmony, is to create a state of mind that is always dividing and separating and dividing and categorizing and compartmentalizing. And those choices are maintained by our emotions. So we can look at some of our social constructs, which we can recognize as being socially engineered, and we can see how we can have cultural conditioning that repeatedly assures us that this group of people, this is the way that they are. And we've had some, again, unfortunate examples from our President of the United States, who's categorizing people who maybe not Native Americans. And by that, I mean, we're probably talking about all the European immigrants who came here. Well, when that's repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated, and it's accompanied by emotional triggers, then we have the precise recipe that we need to generate separation. In a separated state of mind, with our emotions used for separation and trauma and drama rather than for co-creativity, where we are funneled into is a very narrow perceptual range. And that range of perception for most of the world is the range of duality. It is the binary code, the 0 and the 1. There's only one, there's a choice A or choice B. And we are being culturally conditioned to continue to align a very broad range of human perception that is organic, to narrow it and narrow it and narrow it and continue to narrow it and keep it confined to the duality paradigm. Now, in order to do this successfully, for us to be manipulated in this way, and we've given our tacit consent for this to happen to us for a long, long period of time. There have been certain practices, most of them spiritual, that allowed us to kind of very quietly step aside and come out of duality. Most of us are aware of the tradition of Buddhism or Taoism, and that's been a very helpful practice for a lot of us to regain a connection between conscious, unconscious, and subconscious mind. And so one of the things I would just say is if any one of us is meditating, we are making a choice to sit in a position, in an energy state, where our unconscious mind can be in a relationship with our conscious mind. And if we allow that state to blossom and flower, and we don't become frightened of it, we can then also move into a fluid relationship and add our subconscious mind to that mix. So this is what I want to make sure we really have a framework for the conversation. So we're talking today about attention, connection, and disappointment. Now, we all have an experience with getting attention. We know how to give attention. We know how to pay attention. I think probably every one of us has an experience with connection, with either a superficial connection or a soul-satisfying connection, friendly connections, sometimes difficult connections that we have to work through. And I'm sure all of us have had more than one experience of disappointment. Mild, moderate, extreme, we're going to find out more. So it's important to remember that the system of separation is embedded in our family emotional dynamics, and that includes our dynamics with our siblings. The system of separation inserts itself into our intimate and work relationships as well. It is very, very difficult to work yourself out of this. And I believe for me, when people are talking about getting out of the construct and getting out of the matrix, this is actually the core of what we're trying to do. We are trying to liberate ourselves from being stuck in this ceaseless state of separation. It's incredibly stressful. So here I am using the Shri Yantra, which is a beautiful sacred image, and it is used as a mandala for meditation. And I have, in a sense, decoded it for you. So you would understand that a group of people who wanted to liberate themselves from the system of separation in which we all live, and they wanted to do this without attracting attention, without putting themselves into danger. They just wanted to live peaceful, harmonious lives where they were able to experience and enjoy all of their natural human attributes, including the experience of subtle energy and a variety of mind states. This is a symbol that one would be given to meditate on. Now, what I've done is I've diagrammed this because what I want you to see first of all is the bounded circle. And then I'd like you to look at the bounded circle, and inside you will see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 additional circles, the tiniest one being the little dot in the center. And I would like you to work with me and imagine that that first inner circle is symbolic for your conscious mind state. And that that membrane around the circle is what we all experience as our individuated self. The second circle with the bigger scalloped edges, you see the little scalloped edges, those little compartments, those are for the conscious mind. The unconscious mind has bigger compartments, and that circle represents the unconscious mind. And the unconscious mind is this place where we are allowed to release ourselves from the constraints of time. It's also where, in dreaming, we can release ourselves from the constraints of space, from the constraints of age and self-image. And if you are someone who remembers your dreams, you will probably have had dreams in which you were aware that you were looking not like yourself at all. And it didn't worry you, it didn't frighten you. That's because your unconscious mind has much more room to play. Then you can see that the third circle in with the little hatch lines, I believe, is representative of the subconscious mind. This subconscious mind is associated with really deep processes, and we're also assured that our autonomic functions, our autonomic body functions, are aligned with the subconscious mind, but we really don't have any access to that information, and we can't have a relationship with our biofield, our own body, mind, and DNA, where we actually can co-create what we're experiencing. And if you come in again and you see this sort of foamy, bubbly layer that all these triangles are resting on, that would be what I would characterize as free energy, spiritual energy, and resting on all of this and keeping this energy bounded and moving around in relationship to all of these triangles. Those triangles for me represent the templates that I'm talking to you about. So I'd like you to visualize that each one of those little triangles, even when they get smaller, represents an organization of information that will, if we allow it to, keep us trapped in duality perception and keep us really functioning in a very, very limited states of being, way below par of what the organic human being is really gifted with as a human birthright. So you see that I've got that diagrammed, and in between the hash, the lined circle and the dark solid line bounded circle, that's where our emotional energy bounces around. And it will continue to bounce around until we begin to make choices that allow us to turn our attention inward. And in doing this template work, we are turning our attention inward. When you're meditating, you're turning your attention inward. And your destination really, or the beginning of your journey when you get there, is 0 point. That is your wholeness. That's the tiny little dot in the center. Now, when a person has really worked through this kind of meditation and gone through many layers and looked at the box of reality and meditated and done all their work, there will come a point at which there will be a flash of energy and an illumination. The electromagnetic energy of that will be powerful enough to break these templates in one fell swoop, and that's known as the experience of enlightenment. However, if you were to imagine the center of that circle with all the triangles gone, yes, you'd have access to the tiny little dot in the center, but you would still be bounded by the dark line enclosing the circle, and the circle would still be bounded by the linear boxes. So even in a state of enlightenment, we can still find ourselves as human beings in limitations that we're much happier with, but we're still bounded by inorganic limitations that are not part of our human birthright. So I like to think of this program as a kind of re-education, as we're doing a paradigm shift, as we're popping out of the construct. Our DNA is mutating, it's changing, and it is helping us with this journey to come out of this state where we are not integrating our 3 mind states. We are not accessing our spiritual energy, and we're not using our emotional energy. We use it for drama, trauma, and all kinds of things, but we're not really using it yet for really conscious co-creation, which is very joyful and pleasurable and collaborative. So there's the framework for that. So we're talking about attention and connection and disappointment within this context. Now, what happens when we go through repeated cycles of garnering attention, whether it's about a gift or a skill that we have, or a friendship or a love interest? And we go through a cycle with that, and we have the attention, and we feel excited, and we feel hopeful, and we feel as though some wonderful thing is about to happen. We feel connected, we feel alive and vibrant, yet somehow that process turns and becomes a scenario for disappointment and heartbreak sometimes, other times mistrust, but almost always there will be an emotional disconnection that follows the disappointment. Now, this is an overlay of the core wound of rejection, abandonment, and jealousy. When we have a core wound of rejection, and it's not, we haven't worked it all the way through yet. We haven't really taken it apart and looked at every part of it and integrated and made friends with it. When we're in that state, there will be a quality underneath the rejection that is communicating an unspoken message. I am not loved. I am not whole. And that is the reason for my being rejected. And on top of that, there may be other justifications and rationalizations, but the core unarticulated message is I am not loved. The core unarticulated message that's associated with the emotion of abandonment, I'm not enough. I'm not enough. Something about me is not enough because I was abandoned. And if I were enough, I wouldn't have been abandoned. All right, now these two set up the dynamic for feeling an intense jealousy for other people we see who are living through a different core wound, not this one. And because we may not be able to see their core wound, we see them as being happy and satisfied and whole, and maybe having the acceptance and the loving care and being folded in that we are so desperately wanting to have, and then we're triggered into the emotion of jealousy. So now imagine that if you have that going on underneath attention and connection and disappointment, just imagine what might get co-created or manifested.